You are not my conscience. Y'all keep saying that it's my conscience that's killing me. It's my conscience that's eating me up. If I would just go to the police and tell them the truth about everything, I would be fine. It is not my conscience leaving these posts. It is not my conscience emailing me. My conscience cannot leave physical evidence that it exists. Do you know what is physical evidence? The hundreds of comments I get a day telling me to kill myself. The people that are telling me that I'm a pedophile because other people lied. People calling me a murderer because other people lied. Emails. So many emails telling me to kill myself every single day because other people lied. Y'all want to know what happened to Roberta? I already told you. In 2008, just after I left my husband, who had beat me since 2004, and had come out to me and told me that the reason he beat me was because he wanted to be a woman, and he needed to feel like a man, and he needed everybody to believe he was a man, and men beat their women, men control their women, and I was not easy to control. I'm still not easy to control. I can't even control me. Some fucking 6-foot woman is going to be able to do it with a fist? Sorry, no. I came home from work one day, because I used to work. You know, you guys don't believe that, but I did. I used to work. I used to work my ass off. When I was married, I worked 2 jobs the entire time. He couldn't keep one, so I had to have 2. You know, that's how lazy and unproductive I was. So fucking lazy, right? Working 2 jobs for 4 years, keeping the house clean, getting the shit beat out of me, having to move every couple of months so that he could find another job because he kept getting fired from everywhere and couldn't find a job where we lived anymore. Or we'd get kicked out because the neighbors would get tired of hearing me being beat every night. We moved a lot. We switched jobs a lot. But I always maintained 2 so that I could take care of us. Until one day I came home from one of my jobs early, and I found my husband in my bed that my grandmother had given me with a 40-year-old, 400-pound bitch named Mouse. Naked. And they laughed and said, well, we weren't having sex, we were just hot. I'm sure being 400 pounds makes you hot as fuck. And I'm sure being on speed makes you even hotter. There's something I didn't find out until after I left my husband. The reason we had to live out of pawn shops and work 2 jobs was because he had an amphetamine problem. Shit, maybe they were hot. One was on drugs and the other was 400 pounds. Maybe they were just hot. But I didn't believe them. I picked up his skateboard and smashed it across his kneecap. And I left. I left everything I owned. And I moved back in with my grandmother. And I broke down. And I felt like nobody was ever going to love me. Nobody was ever going to want me. I tried so hard to make it work with my husband. I tried so hard. I accepted everything he put me through. I took the beatings. He nearly broke my back. After a couple of months of misery, I put an ad out on Craigslist looking for a long-term relationship, looking for a man that could take care of me, because I was not capable of taking care of myself. I had been diagnosed as schizoaffective and also with borderline personality. And so when I put the ad up on Craigslist, I put in the ad, in the title, not buried somewhere where it might not be seen. The title of the ad I posted was Schizoaffective Woman Looking for a Long-Term Relationship. There is no reason anybody should have clicked on that ad and not understood that I had mental health issues and was looking for a long-term relationship long before reading anything that I wrote in it. I received a lot of messages, went on a couple of dates, until I met a man who called himself Brian, not Kenneth. He did not tell me his name was Kenneth. He introduced himself as Brian. He told me he was a millionaire and that he was going to take care of me. And I believed him. Because I believe everybody. I believed my husband when he said he loved me. I believed my family. I believed everybody. So when I met this man online and he told me his name was Brian and he knew about all my problems and he was going to take care of me, I had no reason not to believe him. And then he came and picked me up and took me for a date, took me out to eat, took me to the store to buy some movies. And over the next couple of months, we formed a relationship. Me and Brian. He took me to parks. He took me to the zoo. He got aggressive at a monkey for staring at me at the zoo. Literally. A big ape was like waving at me. And Brian got angry and threatened to jump into the enclosure and kick his ass, looking at his girl. That's the kind of person he was. After a couple of months, he asked if I would move in with him. I agreed. He came and picked me up and brought me to his place on Myrtle Avenue. It was out in the woods. There was nobody else there. Nobody. It was me and him. For about a month, it was me and him in his house. And I had no reason to believe that anybody else lived there or anybody else would ever live there. One day, he decided that he didn't want to be with me anymore. He took me back to my grandmother's. He dropped me off. He said it was over. I broke down. I started emailing him. And see, this was the first time he broke up with me. He broke up with me 2 or 3 times. After the first time, I started receiving responses from a woman named Roberta. She told me that she was Brian's friend and that Brian was having a really hard time with our breakup. And, you know, he wasn't eating, he wasn't sleeping, he wasn't doing anything. He was just very depressed and making it feel like it was my fault when he was the one that broke up with me. Now, this wasn't actually Roberta messaging me. This was Kenneth messaging me, pretending to be Roberta, to guilt me into feeling bad about the breakup that he instigated. He threatened to kill himself. It went on for a while. We would get back together, break up again, get back together. Finally, after one night when we broke up, I needed to know what happened. I drove back out to his place, and the person that answered the door was a woman in a wheelchair. She said her name was Roberta. He came up behind her and explained to her that he had put out a Craigslist ad looking for a live-in nurse for her, caregiver, helper, and I was responding to the ad. I didn't know what to do. I was caught completely off guard, but I didn't want to make this woman feel uncomfortable. So I went along with it. I went in, we had a conversation. She liked me. She asked that I come back and stay with them and be her caregiver. I left. The next day, Brian, I still didn't know his name, He came and picked me up at my grandmother's and took me back over there where I would live with him and Roberta. I tried to make it work. Like, when Valentine's Day came, I made him take her out to eat because he wanted to take me, and I didn't think that was right because it was Valentine's Day. And so I said, well, why don't we both take Roberta out for a nice meal? She never goes out. She never went out because his vehicle was not equipped for her, and so she couldn't safely leave the home. And so that day, he got her out of the home. We moved her from the wheelchair to the truck and put the wheelchair in the back. We took her to a seafood place and had a nice meal. It was a nice meal she had not had in a long time because he never took her out. Except for like when he put her in the hotel for the month that he kept me. I had him make a mixtape of love songs for her. You know, we did a lot. I did a lot to try to force him to be more romantic with her. And he did not want her anymore. He wanted me. And no amount of me pushing him to be with her was going to change that. For my birthday, February 23rd, he took me to my grandmother's. We had a nice meal. And when we went to leave, I asked him to just leave me there with my grandmother. That I didn't want to go back. I wanted to stay with her. He got real close up to me in my ear and gripped my arm and said, "If you don't get in the motherfucking truck, I will kill your grandmother." From that moment, I had been taken hostage, captive, whatever you want to say. He told me that if I did not get in the truck with him, he would kill my grandmother. If you tell somebody that if they don't come with you through threat of violence against them or their loved ones, you are taking them captive. I was no longer there of my own volition. I was in that truck with him because he threatened to kill my grandmother. The ride back, we argued. I wanted to go back to my grandmother's. He refused. At one point, I tried to jump out of the truck while it was still moving. He grabbed me, pulled the truck over, and had a knife and was going to hurt me if I ever attempted to get out of that truck again without his permission. When we got to the home on Myrtle, he parked the truck in the back. He told me to wait, that he needed to go and talk to her. He was going to take care of everything, settle everything out. He locked the truck and told me that if I opened the door, an alarm would sound and he would hear it and he would come kill me. And that if I got away before he got out there, he had friends who would track me down and find me and bring me back to him. He had me convinced that he had friends, that he was a part of a vigilante mob. He had a lot of friends and they would do what he wanted. I sat there in the truck believing that if I opened the door, an alarm would go off and he would come out and get me, or his friends would get me. When he came out, he took me by the hand into the bedroom, and she was dead, laying on the bed, naked, tied with her hands and feet with a white t-shirt bound around her head and her mouth for a gag, but there was blood all over it. One of her eyes had burst. I froze. Like, my memories from here are very foggy and fuzzy. He started telling me to do things, and I didn't respond, and so he grabbed me and moved me over to the sink with a bloody teddy bear and shoved my hands down in some hot soapy water and told me to wash it. And I remember just standing there with my hands in the scalding water for a long time, not doing anything, while he moved her from the bed to the floor. He did ask me to grab him some garbage bags that were on top of the fridge, and I handed him. He unfolded them. He wrapped her up. He moved her out onto the porch and covered her up with garbage. And then he went out and dug a grave. He came back in. And I have very spotty memories from there. He raped me. And then when I remember again, I was in the back bedroom with my wrists tied to the bed. And he told me that I couldn't leave because he had killed somebody to be with me. He didn't want to be with her anymore. He wanted to be with me. It was a couple of days later before he actually put her in the grave. He kept her on the porch for a couple of days. It was 5 weeks later before I escaped him. I convinced him that I wasn't going to run away. And I did run away, and I went to a gas station, and I told them that I was escaping an abusive boyfriend and I needed help. I didn't tell them about Roberta because I don't know, I was scared. I didn't want anybody to know anything. I just wanted to get away. I just wanted to escape. They took me to my friend in St. Augustine. I told her what happened, and she told me to call the police, and I did. And from there, the investigation began. That's the story. That's what happened. You guys have made up your own version and said that I was the one that killed her. I was the one that planned it. I was the one that did all of this. I was a schizoaffective woman out of an abusive relationship, seeking another relationship, and what I found was a sociopathic man who was actually a pedophile, which is why he lied to me about his name, because if I had Googled his real name, I would have found out that he was a pedophile. I had no way of knowing that because he gave me a fake name. Everything he said to me was fake, and everything I said to him was true. Everything I say to you guys is true. So telling me that all I have to do is confess and it'll all be over with. I can't confess to something I didn't do. There is no amount of torture that will make me confess to something that I didn't do. Kenneth McBride murdered Roberta Laws after taking me captive and then held me there for 5 weeks before I escaped. That's the truth. That's the confession. That's the story.